And we're live, apparently. Hello, anybody out there? Sorry, just been moving things about a wee bit. It all seems a wee bit different somehow. I think a little bit strange, but it's maybe just the angle that I'm sitting at. And I'm going to try and not touch this desk too much this time. But hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me. Just popping on a wee minute early to make sure everything's working okay. And I seem to have sound and I seem to have vision. So yeah, we're just waiting to for 10 o'clock GMT to start our chapter 4 of our June book club. Let me see, I must bring up a wee thing here quickly. And just while I'm thinking about it, let's have a look. It was just a couple of wee comments from Chaya from previously. Excuse me, the previous episode just about Jamas's place in that. And it was just that Chaya commented, I don't think Jamas's thoughts were about the coffee set. It was rather about the type of famous place in history he was buying with his death. See Paul's musings a few lines before, and I kind of agreed with that. I think I just thought it was I think we always had a sense of that with Jamas's place in this, that it's a part of the myth. But I just thought the writing was a wee bit confusing. I think we have another wee bit like that in this chapter today. And it was also just in regards to the disengage. Chaya commented from the disengage from the desire to create a peaceful life for him and Chani, and instead be a proper husbandman to his people and stay on the golden path. There we go. So just a little bit of clearing up a couple of wee remarks there about just a little bit about the coffee set and. I suppose Jamas's place in the previous chapter, but there's 10 o'clock anyway, folks, so I'll say hello. I'm Dr. Sloan, welcome to my science fiction station and our little June Messiah book club. And there's some people starting to arrive there. There's Bojack saying howdy, there's Sean Wyland saying good evening. I hope you're doing well and wishing you a Merry Christmas. Yeah, same to everybody else out there. Happy Christmas to you all. So there's Cynthia saying hi, Doc. Hi all. Hi, Cynthia. Thank you very much for joining us. I had a wee moment or two just I thought it was going to be a wee bit just before I came on, because I'd taken a little bit of a squirt of an antiseptic throat spray and it just didn't agree with me at all. But hello everybody, I hope you're all keeping well. It's a really stormy day and night here, batten down the hatches kind of thing. Been getting battered all day. I actually managed to get the dogs out for a walk, and it was just came back very fresh. But we've been having very strong winds and lots of rain. To the point we were just down the town a wee while back there, and the River Ban is looking like it's going to flood. It's quite the river's very high for this time of night. But there we go. I wonder what the weather's like where you're at, folks. So, yes, indeed, let's have a wee look. I wanted to just grab our copy of Dune here as well. Just to have pardon me, just our terminology of the Imperium at handy. There we go. And I also just kind of wanted to have the map. There's a couple of wee things just curious about the map itself there, and I think we'll see one of these today. And I'm not 100% sure about this, but it might be just that we're going to get some new locations on the map. And it's one of the things that I think sadly is kind of lamentable about the Dune series. And I've said this before, is that I suppose I've always actually said it's the terminology of the Imperium doesn't carry on into other books, or is indeed updated as the books go along. But also that the map of Arrakis isn't updated, I think, which is a pity. I think it would be interesting to have that, to see Arrakis's transformation over the thousands of years in map form. It would be an interesting asset to the reader. So there we go, folks. I hope you're all keeping well. I wonder what the weather's like where you're at. Suppose it's midwinter's day here, isn't it? So technically, this is our myself and my wife. This is our we get half anniversaries and quarter and 3/4 anniversaries every year because we got married on Midsummer's Day. So this is Midwinter's Day. So this is our 9th and a half wedding anniversary technically. on our way to 10. But yeah, the days will start getting longer, which is good. Something I'm looking forward to. And I hope you're all, if Christmas is your thing, I hope you're all geared up and getting ready for your dinner and your presents and stuff. Let's see, there we are, chapter 4. I've written down here just to get a wee look at this before we get started. Oh, here. Do you know something? I was having a chat with my wife there. My wife has just finished Ubik by Philip K. Dick, and she's not a person that reads much science fiction. She's read a couple of books that I've given her, and she's enjoyed them, but I think she's really, really enjoyed Ubik. We were just sort of talking about how a second read of a book can be very, very different from the first read of a book, and that Ubik is a great example of that. And I think as are the Dune books, But just before we go on, I suppose I've been thinking, it's been a long time since I've hit Dune Messiah, and the book has really got me thinking, which I'm enjoying. And just before we begin this one, I just had some thoughts here, and it was just things that I've scribbled, but sort of to have between the two chapters, and it was just sort of to see, just to make sense of things. But it was just before we begin, some thoughts, and I've written one. Paul wishes to avoid the Jihad, is kind of what we've been told prior to this, and I've just made a note that this is already failed and has been going on for 12 years. 2, he wants a happy life with Chani. And I was going, this is going to fail too. And he wants to follow the golden path, which will ultimately fail. I was just considering, I suppose, just Paul in terms of what Paul wants, or his sort of guiding actions, or if you see what I mean. And also kind of asking questions about, is Paul not saying any of this because of the oracle, or 2, because of anger? And again, this is pertaining to the previous chapter. I was just thinking the Jihad happens, they breed precedence, but the use of the Bene Gesserit hindsight isn't really much used by Paul. I think the things that I was thinking, that the future is more dominant. And I thought that was interesting, when really the ultimate goal of the Bene Gesserit is to breed, excuse me, a Kwisatz Haderach. Now, as much as that, the aspect of the Mentat and the ability to sort of to have prescience, if you like, I always thought that an equally fundamentally important part of that was the ability to see into the male line, if you like, or the male and female line. And I've just scribbled here a question that was, did Paul call for the Jihad? And I suppose it's something that we're going to see in this chapter. So there's nothing really to sort of poke out there. I think it was just kind of some musings, and I just thought I'd scribble them down. In terms of what Paul wants, what Paul's going about, what are his actions and motivations based on, this kind of thing. And I was considering the nature of the failed Messiah, if you like, or the failed hero. And I was, especially because I was having a wee chat about with my wife about the Ring of Gyges, and I was also having a wee chat with her about, well, I suppose Lord of the Rings, really, and the moment of, we were having a chat about 2 things. One was Faramir, and how Faramir isn't bothered by the ring in any, just no thank you, doesn't want it, and is able to resist the ring so easily. And the other one was, I suppose, about Frodo succumbing to the ring at the very end, which is what I suppose a lot of people don't really pay too much attention to, but the ring gets him in the end, and he puts it on, if you see what I mean. So it was just considering some things, and it's just got me thinking at the minute, and nothing's sort of popping explosively out of my head or anything, but it was just some thoughts, and just wondering what you're thinking at this point with the book yourself. But this is a really interesting chapter, and I don't know how quickly it'll go, this one, because we've got a lot of dense dialogue in it between Scytale and Farok. Excuse me, and it's really interesting. I think what we are going to see, I suppose, is the Fremen aspect of the conspiracy, which is not represented at the first meeting of the conspiracy, if you like, And I suppose ultimately what we're going to get through Farok and his lengthy sort of discussions about things with Scytale in this is the Fremen motivation, if you like, for why would the Fremen turn on Paul Muad'Dib Atreides, So there's some interesting, I suppose, revelations in this book, and again we have this in this chapter. Sorry, and again what we've got really before we get started is a lot of double talk, hidden meaning, and it extends beyond spoken language, I suppose, in this chapter. The hidden meaning will also move into music and things like that. So it's a really interesting little chapter, and again, just thinking in terms of paradox, the theme of vision and maybe field vision, if you like, and of course, something that I'm kind of quite curious about at the minute, because I'm kind of looking at Scytale in a kind of having a wee focus on him as a character, on it as a character, and just the idea of mimesis. With the Twi'leks who face dancer, I think it's very, very interesting. And there's a couple of other wee things. Yeah, my head's kind of pondering stuff, folks. And I'm kind of pleased, if you like, about it. It's Dune Messiah. Last time I read this book, probably about 13 years ago, something like that. And it's a book amongst the Dune books. It's a book I particularly enjoy, if you see what I mean, So there we go. There's Carlos Crescelia saying, "What's up, guys? Merry Christmas to everyone." Merry Christmas to you, Carlos. Thank you very much for joining us. And there's Joseph Smith saying, "Howdy." Excuse me. And there's Chaya saying, "Shalom all." Shalom, Chaya. I hope everyone is well. Yes, hope you're well too, Chaya. I was just reading out your little comments that you left just as we got started in relation to Jamis and etc. So thank you very much for those, as always. There's Carlos saying, "Where was Fade and Margot's child during all this?" Spirited it away, I think. Again, I'm led to believe that Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson have kind of done stuff with this, which I think is kind of sad, but it is very curious to wonder all about this. Yes, indeed, Margot's child. It's an interesting thing, isn't it? Kind of reminds me a bit on, and again, I think they did something with this recently, but if you like, within Judge Dredd, his kind of Judge Dredd's family tree is that many years ago, in the early days of Judge Dredd, that you discover that Dredd has a niece called Vienna, and you can always wonder what happened to Vienna Dredd, but I think I don't know what they did with her, because I stopped reading 2080 a wee while back, but always kind of reminded me on that kind of thing. But yes, indeed, the child spirited away. And the potential of that, Carlos, is massive, and it how would I put it? I was going to say I was going to use the word breeds. It breeds nicely into the Atreides myth, if you see what I mean, about familial revenge and I suppose surviving children escaping to carry out their revenge. This kind of thing. It's kind of a bit of a trope, isn't it? You killed my pa. This kind of thing. But yeah, and again the whole idea of that and everything about Margot Fenring and Count Casimir Fenring. They're really interesting, aren't they? And so I think we talked a wee bit recently about how. And I suppose if you think about this within the author's intent, that Frank liked to let certain threads drop altogether. Just that's it. I'm going to drop that, and on we go. Some things he'll pick up, but it's a deliberate thing, and I think it's part of the charm of a really well built universe like this, a real built literary universe, and part of what makes you want to come back to it is if you wonder about it. If you answer every question in a story, then you have no wonder left. Almost, it's almost, I suppose, what Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson are doing is, I suppose, it's almost like prescience, isn't it? Take all the wonder out of it and just answer all these little questions for you, So I'm always curious about speculating about these things, wondering if wondering if they've written about it, But it's nice to speculate, And I do see that I do look at the 6 Dune books. That's us basically, sadly. There's Ryan the Scar saying, "Cheers, everyone. Hi, Ryan. How are you doing?" And VT 31008. Hi, everybody. Hi, VT. How are you doing? Thanks very much for joining us. So yeah, it's a great wee chapter. This some good writing. That I think I find one moment of where I'm not too happy with Frank's scribblings, and that's just because I think it leaves a little bit of doubt about the meaning. But all writers have these kind of things. Sometimes something just doesn't work. And whenever you've got about 1 million words on the page, if you're only finding the odd thing here and there, it's nothing really to complain about, is it? I think I think it's a really interesting chapter. It's got a couple of little cliches in it, I suppose, and a little bit of action. Yeah, our conspiracy, I suppose, is going to come across as a little bit sinister here. So our first, let's have a wee look. To start off with our epigraph. Let me just get the book open here. Oh, I was quite pleased today, by the way. I was just down the town having a wee look around a bookshop, and I didn't see the book I was wanting for a present. But I took a wee wander into another shop, and I managed to find a copy of Children of Dune, and these covers, greatly reduced in price than it is in the shop. So I think I'll go pick it up tomorrow, actually, if it's still there. Oddly enough, with a copy of 1984, very cheap. Right. So, okay, sorry. Here we are. Here's our epigraph. I'll just read the thing in its entirety, I suppose. Here we go. It's the first of our lengthy ones. The advent of the field process shield and the lasgun with their explosive interaction, deadly to attacker and attacked, placed current determinatives on weapons technology. We need not go into the special role of atomics. The fact that any family in my empire could so deploy its atomics as to destroy the planetary bases of 50 or more other families causes some nervousness. True. But all of us possess precautionary plans for devastating retaliation. Guild and Landsrat contain the keys which hold this force in check. No, my concern goes to the development of humans as special weapons. Here is a virtually unlimited field which a few powers are developing. From Muad'Dib, lecture at the War College, from the Stilgar Chronicle. So Muad'Dib, a lecture at the War College from the Stilgar Chronicle. I suppose the question can we ask is, are those actually Muad'Dib's words? And there's no reason to suspect that they're not, I suppose. Ultimately, yeah, it's not nuclear bombs that bother us. It's the development of human beings as special application weapons, basically. And it's an interesting thing. And I suppose ultimately, when we think about the King's family goals in terms of what they want the Fremen to become, they basically they try to mold the Fremen into tools for geomorphic change. And so he views the Fremen as geomorphic agents, if you like. It's a wee bit similar, I think, that it's a different thing that they're highly specialized humans, but it's that they're not weapons, if you like. So this is taking that idea a little bit further. And we're told that a few powers are developing these. So I've kind of made a little list and wanted to know who, if you like. And I've put down, first of all, the Sardaukar no. And I look at the Sardaukar in decline at this point, and as much as we could have seen them that way, I don't really think that's the case with them. The Fremen, yes. The Atreides, yes. The Bene Gesserit, yes. The Bene Tleilax, yes. Ixians, I've put yes, because of ultimately what we know. If we've gone down to the God Emperor of Dune, there's reasons for saying yes, they're developing humans as special weapons, if you like. The Guild have put no, question mark, don't think so. And the Mentats, I've put no, but the Mentat traits are used as a baseline to evolve other things such as the Kwisatz Haderach. Yeah. And just in terms of evolution, I suppose, of human beings, if we think about evolution as the dominant theme of the entire Dune series, then this is, I suppose, taking that step. But the Kwisatz Haderach, I suppose, ultimately is a human who's been bred to be a special type of weapon, I think, So it's an interesting little epigraph. The other thing, I suppose, that's discussed in it within is that, I suppose, the paradox, if we like, of mutually assured destruction. That the major houses, I suppose, have. We're told that each of them has enough nukes to basically wipe out 50 other planets. What keeps them in check, I suppose, is that if any one of them acts in a certain way, then all the other houses will unite to act against them. That's part of the Atreides myth, if you like, about the Trojan War. So if we go back far enough within the story of the Trojan War, I suppose, the story of Helen of Sparta before she becomes Helen of Troy, I think we'll put it this way: the first kidnapper of Helen is Theseus, I believe, and ultimately, I suppose, is all the Greeks, all the kings of Greece, I suppose, basically get together to decide whose bride she's going to be, and they all make a deal basically to agree that whoever does marry her, that if anyone tries to kidnap her or take her, that all the other kings will kind of unite against that individual. So it's a sort of agreement that they all make, I suppose, before the choice, if you like, is made, which is ultimately Menelaus. So that's kind of, if you like, the reason, the reason in particular for all the Greek kings going to fight the Trojan War, if you like, is that Helen has been kidnapped, and they've all agreed to act on behalf of whoever happens to be her husband, if you like. So that's kind of one of the casus belli, if you like. There's quite a few of them for the Trojan War. So there we go. The little thing about the Greek atomics there, or sorry, the Greek atomics. Listen to me. The houses of the Landsrat atomics very much reminds me of the kind of that promise of the Greek kings, if you like, that it's a mutually assured destruction. If anybody kidnapped, we'll all destroy you. And it's very similar in that, I think. So let's have a wee look. So we start off, I suppose, with the old man. We're going to find out later on that this old man is Farrokh, who's a Bashar of the 9th Legion in the Jihad. And Farrokh appears in Dune. So he does. In fact, I suppose, interestingly enough, how do I put this? All the key, a lot of the key. There aren't too many Fremen who are mentioned in any detail, I suppose, in Dune, but most of them are here in this book, and I suppose we get to see what's happened to them. Bear with me a wee second, folks. I've got this monitor adjusted that I can actually see what's going on. There we go. With my files there. Hopefully that's okay. That's better. Bear with me a wee second. See if I can just quickly look something up here. There we go. Right, and find. There we go. All right. So yes, in Dune, I suppose Farrokh is in need of water. I suppose whenever I know your need, Farrokh, Stilgar said. He glanced at Jessica. She nodded. Is a broach one for those that need it, Stilgar said. Watermaster. Where is a watermaster? Ah, sure. That point, I suppose, where Jessica helps this guy out. Later on at sea, there will be one called Farrokh. Turn towards Paul. Throw off your hood, Usul. Farrokh says, you're home. And he helped Paul. Why are we waiting for Farrokh? So these are the interactions, I suppose, with Farrokh in it. The smells of home, Paul Farrak asked, is this Late known as Kynes? There is only one Late, said Farrak. And does Usul hunger yet for revenge? That's pretty much it. That's the 8 instances of Farrak, basically in Dune, just to quickly run through them. So we're both, I think we've got Farrak, we're going to see Othim, and then of course Korba. All of these Fremen appear in Dune, I suppose, and they're kind of seen as, I suppose, the elite commandos, the lieutenants of Stilgar and Muad'Dib, you know. So there's Barbara Bilo saying, hello, hi Babs, how you doing? Howdy Doc, sorry I'm late, not at all. I actually managed to make it here on time for once, I suppose. I'm always saying hopefully we'll see you on Thursday at 10 o'clock, but I managed to do it this week. I suppose things are wrapping up for me with tuition for Christmas and stuff, so it gives me a wee bit more time to muck around with this stuff. But yeah, thanks very much for joining us, Babs. We're just getting started, really. Pretty much. We just read the epigraph, so there you go. So let's have a wee look then. So we're told that the old man stood in the doorway, peering out, blue eyes, the eyes veiled by the native's suspicion that all desert folk held for strangers. Bitter lines tortured at the edge of his mouth, where it could be seen through a fringe of white beard. Wore no stillsuit, and this said much that he ignored this fact in full knowledge of the moisture pouring from his house through the door. So as much as we were talking about putting on the stillsuit, putting on the desert, if you like, the previous episode, this Fremen has taken off the stillsuit, in a sense has taken off the desert, if you like. And I just thought that's also like Paul as well, the moisture pouring from the houses through the door. So they're not maintaining, a Fremen that's not maintaining water discipline or checking the moisture seals, this kind of thing seems quite strange to us at this point. Scytale, we're told, bowed and gave the greeting signal of the conspiracy. Well, whatever that may be. And from somewhere behind the old man, we're told the sound of a rebeck wailing through the atonal dissonance of Samuta music. So Samuta music, Samuta is another one of, I suppose, Frank Herbert's many drugs. And we've had a wee chat about it before in Dune, of course. And it's, I'm trying to remember his name, actually. Particularly it's the Baron's lieutenant, doesn't it? That's oh my goodness, that's my memory away. Addicted to Samuta. And it's basically, I suppose, a musical drug. Atonal dissonance of Samuta music. That's, I suppose, wondering about that. Doesn't sound worth listening to, does it, if it's atonal and dissonant? But there we go. So it's a bit of music coming from the background, a different musical instrument, I suppose, than we're used to. The main thing we see in Arrakis and Dune is the balisette. So here we have a rebeck, which is a real instrument, I suppose. It's quite old, medieval, I suppose. And type it in and have a wee look. If you're interested in such things, you probably see it on Wikipedia. Boat-shaped is the way I would describe it. It can have between 1 and 5 strings, and you play it with a bow. And I noted that it's of questionably of Arabic origin. Which is interesting because I love stringed instruments, and I particularly love I suppose what would you call ethnic string instruments, but there's such a range of them. So some lovely instruments out in the Middle East. I suppose variations of lutes and lyres and all sorts of things. But that's what a rebag is. Wailing. So I don't know about you guys, I suppose, but I always thought that drugs were supposed to enhance music and make it this kind of thing. But the wailing, atonal dissonance could be something similar to the bagpipes. Who knows? I used to not mind the bagpipes, but I lived in Edinburgh for a year, and I basically got to hear them every day, and they scunnered me after that. I still like them, I suppose, but I don't like to hear them very often. So, yes, indeed. The old man's manner carried no drugged dullness. an indication that Samuta was the weakness of another, we're told. And it seems strange to Scytale, though, to find that sophisticated vice in this place. Greetings from afar, says Scytale, smiling through the flat-featured face that he'd chosen for this encounter. It occurred to him then that this old man might recognize the chosen face, we're told, and that some of the older Fremen here on Dune had known Duncan Idaho. And I suppose it's interesting. We maybe wonder why he does take on the face of Duncan Idaho. Why that form of mimesis, if you like. Scytale's thoughts are, this choice of features, he amusing. It might have been a mistake. And he decides, but he dare not change the face out here, so he's going to go with it, basically. I don't know. He casts nervous glances up and down the street. And I was wondering, is this genuine at this point, or is it for Farok's benefit? Would the old man never invite him inside? I think it is genuine. The old man says, "Did you know my son?" And we're told that at least was one of the counter signs. So again, all sorts of the hidden meaning. The eagle has landed, all of this kind of stuff. We're told that Scytale makes the proper response. All the time he's keeping his eyes alert for any suspicious circumstances in his surroundings. He did not like his position here. We're told the street is a cul-de-sac and it ends in this house. The houses all around have been built for veterans of the Jihad. And they formed a suburb of Arrakis, which stretched into the Imperial base and past T-Mag. Now, that was a little bit. I was just having a wee quick nosy at the map in June. I got the Imperial Basin here, and I can't see anything really there. The only thing that's close to, I suppose, is Timo, but Arrakis here, etc. So nothing. I don't see any T-Mag on the map unless I literally can't see the forest for the trees, but I've kind of just been told where it is. So interesting enough, then I suppose we have some changes to the geography of Dune. But that was just something that got my curiosity. I thought, T-Mag, I wonder where that is on the map, and I had a wee quick look, and I couldn't find it. Be interesting that somebody could do that, actually, to do a little like Arrakis throughout the ages maps. Just because even the place names we know change by the time of the God Emperor, for example. So counter signs and signs and homes built for veterans of the Jihad. I think we were chatting a wee bit about empires and things like that. And what do you do with your veterans? Is a problem that some of them still try to solve, I suppose. It is a problem for a lot of societies. What do you do with your military veterans? In this case, it seems build nice cul-de-sacs for them and give them nice homes. So we're told the walls which hemmed in the street presented blank faces of, it's my bad handwriting. Is that clean plasmel? Dun plasmeld. Sorry, that is my handwriting's okay there. Faces of dun plasmeld broken by dark shadows of sealed doorways and here and there scrawled obscenities. So I've made a wee note. This is graffiti. If you live in a society that has a problem with graffiti, then yeah, it's not a good thing. I'll rephrase that. If you live in a society where your government has a problem with graffiti, it's not a good sign. I believe one of the things that Rishi Sunak's been kicking off about over here is in the UK is graffiti. And graffiti is a long and ancient tradition, way back to the Roman Empire, etc. What's the one I love is always think ahead, and then you run out of space on the wall. But graffiti in particular is a particular way of criticism of the powers that be. And this is scrawled obscenities, I suppose, but we call it graffiti. Beside this very door, scrolled obscenities. Beside this very door, someone had chalked a pronouncement that one Barris had brought back to Arrakis a loathsome disease which deprived him of his manhood. And I've scribbled something like Barris got Jihad EVD and his Muad'Dib fell off. And the wee question I've asked here, by the way, folks, is Barris this blind youth that we're going to see in a minute or two? And it's a question, I suppose, ultimately that we're not going to have. It's not going to be answered for us. We're not going to find out. No. Bear with me a wee second. This is I know it's a certain. Sorry, bear with me a wee second there, folks. Beris borrowed from the ancient Greek Beris, which is a river in Pontus mentioned by Arian, I suppose. There's a water reference there. So the old man says, do you come in partnership, Scytale, alone? The old man cleared his throat, still hesitating in that maddening way, and Scytale cautioned himself to patience. Contact in this fashion, we're told, carried its own dangers. Perhaps the old man knew some reason for carrying on this way. Was the proper hour, though? The pale sun stood almost directly overhead, so it must be very hot. People of this quarter remained sealed in their houses to sleep through the hot part of the day. Yeah, only siesta, etc. Was it they say only mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. Now, let's see where we're at. So, Scytale wanders. Here we are. Was it the new neighbour who bothered the old man? The adjoining house had been assigned to Othim, once a member of Muad'Dib's dreaded Feda King Death Commandos, and Bijaz, the catalyst dwarf, waited with Othim. So the little aspects of our conspiracy here. Bijaz and Othim. Othim again from Dune. And one of the Feda Kinas, we're told here, and he's waiting with Bijaz. Now, Bija, this word Bija, let's see, from Hinduism, Buddhism, and in Sanskrit is an origin or the cause of things. Bija in Sanskrit also means seed. And I've put down a little see Wikipedia, Bija, Bija, for more, if you like to check that out. There's also the Bija Om, which, there we go. I took the time to, all right. Oh, there we are. Scribbled that for you. Just to have a wee look. There we are. So that's interesting, the meaning behind his names. Now, I suppose we're going to get a response from Scytale in a wee second. We'll have a look at the name he gives here. So, Bijaz the dwarf. Again, this is going to be quite important to the plot here. But we'll let that till we meet him, I suppose. Scytale, we're told, returned his gaze to the old man, noted the empty sleeve dangling from his left shoulder and the lack of a still suit. An air of command hung about this old man. He'd been no foot slogger in the Jihad. And the old man says, may I know the visitor's name? And Scytale suppressed a sigh of relief. So he was to be accepted after all. I am Zal, he said, giving the name assigned him for this mission. Excuse me. Now, Zal, I suppose in Dutch is a room. But Zal, in this case, I think, is a reference to a mythological character, an Iranian king, Zal, spelt Z-A-L. Sorry, spelt Z-A-L, who's from the Shahnameh epic. Let me see if I can bring some of this stuff up here on the screen. I'll have a wee look at them for you quickly. I've been getting a real kind of hankering to read a good epic lately. Zal, also spelled Zal the same way it is in Dune here, also known as Dastan, is a legendary Iranian king from Sistan and is recognized as one of the greatest warriors of the Shahnameh epic. He is the father of the equally legendary Iranian hero Rostam. There we go. And just a little bit about it. It's quite interesting. There's a fair bit here. Later life and a family tree. But I just thought some of it was quite interesting. Just very quickly, anybody's into this kind of stuff. Zal came from a family whose members were legendary warriors who, for generations, served in the Persian army as great generals. His father, Sam, and later his son, Rostam, were also great heroes of Persia. Zal was born with white hair, and because of this, his parents called him Zal. In the Persian language, Zal refers to those who have albinism. Zal was the son of Sam and the grandson of Nariman, both heroes of ancient Persia and protectors of motherland Iran. Zal. Because of his appearance, Zal was rejected by his father, who blamed the evil spirit Ahriman for the appearance of his son. Zal was abandoned when only an infant in the Alborz Mountains, which has the highest geographic peak in Iran. And the mythical Simmer, a very large and wise bird which darkens the sky when flying, said to be related to the phoenix, found the baby and took him to her nest. So a lot of really good typical hero stuff there, if you see what I mean. Sounds fascinating. It goes on, I suppose, the devoted about the bird giving him a feather. For if any time he's ever in need, bird, if you ever need me, may your heart never forget your nurse, whose heart breaks for love of you. Really good. I've been thinking about what epic to read next, actually, because I do fancy reading one. I don't know. I've been thinking about reading the Mahabharata, to be honest. I don't have a copy, but it's kind of been long on my list of getting stuff done to read, if you like. But I quite fancy having a go at. I suppose that's for a rainy day. Journey to the West and Outlaws of the Marsh again, but something new for me. So there we go. Zal is the name that has been assigned to Scytale. The old man says, I am Farrokh, once Bashar of the 9th Legion in the Jihad. Does this mean anything to you? There's a bit of ego there, isn't there? Scytale read menace in the words and said, you were born in Siege Tabar with allegiance to Stilgar. Farrokh relaxed, stepped aside. You're welcome in my house. So yes, it does mean something to Scytale. Atrium in the courtyard, we're told that Scytale slipped past them into a shadowy atrium with a blue tile floor that the glittering designs worked in crystal on the walls. Beyond the atrium was a covered courtyard. I suppose a contrast there. The light emitted by the translucent filters spread in opalescence as silvery as the white night of first moon. The street door grated into its moisture seals behind him. And I was kind of thinking that made no sense because this is an atrium, isn't it? So an atrium is, well, I suppose it could be covered. I would think of in a place like this as an atrium as how would you put it? I suppose think of it as a cuboid structure, walls on each side, but the roof is open. Or I suppose can be opened. I suppose, but I would consider, I suppose the part of the front of a building is naturally cool, if you like, and it's generally open, isn't it? That's the bit that I didn't really get. So we'll just assume it's like Dune's version of an atrium, I suppose. Yeah, nice little bit of writing there, though, I thought. Opalescence as silvery as the white night of the first moon. Very nice. Farrokh says we were a noble people. He said, leading his way towards the courtyard. We were not of the cast out. Well, we'll get to that later. I suppose that's Jack Harutu and all that stuff, isn't it? In Children of Dune, we lived in no Graben village such as this. We had a proper siege. In the shield wall above Habanya Ridge, one worm could carry us into Kedem, the inner desert. Kedim's an interesting word, isn't it? How do we look at it? I suppose also Kadima is forward, but it is generally kind of meant to represent, if I'm not mistaken, an easterly wind or the east wind. But I also got the sense, and I might be wrong about this, that the word Kedim kind of represents a similar, in terms of the east, I suppose, a similar idea to the west, if you like, in mythology of the Celts and the Irish, for example. That kind of thing that you might even find in Lord of the Rings, if I'm not mistaken, into the west, that kind of thing. Okay, let me just have a wee look. Kedim East is used just with Wikipedia. Classical compass winds. It just says here is used frequently as the name of a scorching wind that blows from the east. It is related to the modern word kadima, meaning forward, and there are several passages referring to the scattering of people to all the winds, this kind of thing. Kedim to proceed, Proto-Semitic to come before. As well, there. Can't even get him. Oh, get away. But yeah, east, if you like. I don't know. I kind of got that sense of it, if you like, into Kedim, east into the inner desert. Self-pity. Self-pity and nostalgia is really what I'm going with Farrock. We'll see how that plays out. I suppose. We were noble people, not, Scytale, not like this, he agreed, realizing now that what brought Farrock into the conspiracy. There we go. The Fremen longed for the old days and the old ways. So nostalgia, really, isn't it? And I suppose in some ways, I think it's almost, if Farrock did represent, I suppose, the dissatisfaction of the Fremen, it's almost a kind of, be careful what you wish for, I suppose. Well, you've got it now, you don't like it, that kind of thing. I don't know. I suppose the point of what he's bemoaning about isn't really anything that bad. If we're not of the cast out. We lived in no grabbing village such as this. I think Scytale's going to give us a wee comment about it in a second. Doesn't seem to be that bad a place, if you like, for a wee retirement home. We're told they entered the courtyard, and Scytale observes that Farrock struggled with an intense dislike for his visitor. This is what Scytale realizes. Fremen distrusted eyes that were not the total blue of the Abad. Offworlders, Fremen said, had unfocused eyes which saw things they were not supposed to see. So a little bit of superstition there, and I suppose we're going to get a fair bit of it in this chapter. The Semuta music stopped at their entrance and was replaced now by the strum of a baliset. First, a 9-scale chord, then the clear notes of a song popular on the Naraj worlds. A 9-note chord is an Anea chord or a Nona chord. There you go. Or a 9-tone chord. Now, Naraj is Hindi for angry or unhappy, outraged or vexed, which would kind of make sense, I suppose. Something funny about the word names that the Fremen invade here, I think. The youth, as we're told, as his eyes adjusted to the light, Scytale saw a youth sitting cross-legged on a low divan beneath arches to his right. The youth's eyes were empty sockets. Oh, we love a good divan. There's a lot of this chapter, I think. How would I put it? Yeah, very reminiscent of the Arabian Nights, the 1001 Nights. You gotta love divans. Sorry, I'm obsessed with divans ever since I've been reading the Arabian Nights, but it's all to do with the Strugatsky brothers. To be honest with you, there's a really strange divan thing, and Monday starts on Saturday, I think. If anybody hasn't read it, it's nuts. It's very funny. That's kind of made me look at divans in a different way. That's whimsy for you. So sitting cross-legged on a low divan beneath the arches to his right. So we're getting the kind of setup of the courtyard here. The youth's eyes were empty sockets. And again, thinking about our theme of vision and sight within this book. We've already just had the off-world, as Fremen said, had unfocused eyes, which saw things they were not supposed to see. Pardon me. They've got these empty eye sockets. I suppose we can contrast these, I suppose, with Orthine's daughter's eyes later as well. So we're told, with the uncanny facility of the blind, he began singing the moment Scytale focused on him. The voice was high and sweet. I've just called these songs of hidden meaning. So I'll just read it from the book here. So a wind has blown the land away and blown the sky away, and all the men. Who is this wind? The trees stand unbent, drinking where men drank. I've known too many worlds, too many men, too many trees, too many winds. It's all a bit much, isn't it? And all the men, the winds. Who is this wind? Now, of course, what's going on? These are songs of hidden meaning, aren't they? Tunes of hidden meaning is that essentially it's a form of distrance, isn't it? And as this blind youth plays his instrument and sings, he's actually passing information, I suppose, subliminally via distrance into Scytale, which is, I suppose, the point of this meeting, really. So it's very interesting. And all the men. Arguably, I suppose, again, if we think about the Atreides overlay and all of that stuff. Hang on, there we go. How would we put it? Yeah. Historically, I suppose, if we look at the Trojan War, and you can also arguably look at this in terms of World War II, and the consequences of, let's just say, almost everybody in what we call Greece, if you like, piling up and fighting everybody in what we would call modern day Turkey for a protracted 10-year battle. What it does to the male population, I suppose, ultimately is one of the major things that leads to the Bronze Age collapse. Is that if you get this sense, if you've ever read the Iliad and the Odyssey, one of the things you'll really figure out is that hardly anyone gets home at all. And it's really hard to suggest, who does get home from the Trojan War. I suppose not thinking about Aeneas and the escapees, if you like, but Menelaus gets home, and Odysseus eventually gets home, but you'd be hard pressed to name anybody else. I suppose Agamemnon, of course, gets home and is promptly murdered by his wife, but it's one of those things. Again, I suppose we're seeing it with population problems in this day and age, with, I suppose, the loss of the war generation, and then we have the baby boomers, and then I suppose good old Generation X, and then I suppose the AIDS generation, all of these kind of things. But our population's kind of way off kilter, isn't it, in terms of its demographics? So just got me thinking a wee bit about that. I suppose we're all the men. I feel like what's happened to all the Fremen, I suppose these people are going to have seen quite a lot of death and killing. There you go. So Scytale notes, however, that those are not the original words of this song. They've been changed. Farrell led away from the youth and under the arches on the opposite side of the courtyard, and indicated cushions scattered over the tiled floor, and the tiles were worked into designs of sea creatures. Which was interesting. So there is a cushion once occupied in the siege by Muad'Dib, says Frog, indicating around Black Mound. It is yours now. So I think it's very much like Muad'Dib, just sat on this once. Therefore, it is this. Oh, I'm in your debt, says Scytale. Sinking onto the Black Mound, he smiled, and Farrak displayed wisdom, we're told. Um, a sage spoke of loyalty, even when listening to songs of hidden meaning and words with secret messages. There we go. Who could deny the terrifying powers of the tyrant emperor? And that's a bit, just there we are. It's a bit of a random statement at this point, isn't it? Hmm. A sage spoke of loyalty even while listening to songs of hidden meaning and words with secret messages. Who could deny the terrifying powers of the tyrant emperor? Um, hmm. I suppose, interestingly enough, the word tyrant there is probably used correctly. No, that's right. I've jumped ahead a wee bit. If I turn 2 pages, there we are. 2021. Yes. So, interesting as words. That's right. Oh, yes, my bad handwriting again. Bear with inserting. Sorry, there we go. Inserting his words across the song without breaking the meter. Farrokh said, "Does my son's music disturb you?" And Scytale gestured to the cushion facing him, put his back against the cool pillar. "I enjoy music." Here we go. So this is the conversation getting going here. And we start off, I suppose, Naraj, these eyes. My son lost his eyes in the conquest of Naraj. He was nursed there and should have stayed. No woman of the people will have him thus. I find it curious, though, to know I have grandchildren on Naraj that I may never see. Do you know the Naraj worlds, Zal? And Scytale responds, in my youth, I toured there with a troop of my fellow face dancers. And of course, Farrokh says, "You're a face dancer then. I had wondered at your features. They reminded me of a man I knew here once." "Duncan Idaho," says Scytale. "That one, yes. A swordmaster in the Emperor's pay. He was killed, so it is said," says Scytale. "So it is said," Farrokh agrees. Um, "Are you truly a man then? I've heard stories about face dancers that..." He shrugs. And Scytale responds here, "We are Jadaka hermaphrodites, either sex at will. For the present, I am a man." And Farrokh pursed his lips and thought then, "May I call for refreshments? Do you desire water, iced fruit? Talk will suffice." So, Jadaka is an interesting, there we go, word. Now, I don't know if anybody's got any clue about this, but I went to looking and I couldn't really find much. And I thought, well, it's a particularly odd word, isn't it? And I was wondering, was it particular to how particular it was to Dune? Bear with me a second. Let's bring up Dune Messiah here. Ebook. Jadacha. Just got it searching at the minute here for it in the book. Let's give it a capital J. Yeah, one mention in the entire book. We are Jadaka hermaphrodites. I'm pretty sure the term doesn't appear elsewhere. And I don't know if it's something that Frank has thrown in willy-nilly. I thought about playing with it. That's, okay, Jadaka, let's see if we can do something with it. Has he hidden another word in it? Maybe tried to evolve that word. So usually when it's something like that, I tend to drop the J first of all and go for Yadaka or something like that. Latin alphabet thing. Yadak, then that actually resulted in a couple of things that make sense. So I've got 3 words that this could possibly be referring to, and they're all Irish, by the way. So Yadak, first of all, is the Irish word for a cloth that covers a covering garment, cloth, if you like. But Dadak, then, so Adaka, Daka, Dadak, like that. Which is a modern version, is Tadak. Tadak. I'm probably pronouncing these quite badly wrongly. If that's good English, isn't it? Which means someone who's impulsive, capricious, or temperamental. Mercurial, possibly. I don't know. I thought the idea of that were Jadaka hermaphrodites were clothed, were hermaphrodites that wear clothes almost, kind of made sense. But then Jadaka, Dadak, Tardak, Tardak, um, impulsive, capricious. I don't know, but other it could just be a reference to a locus or something, a place, for example. But otherwise, I don't have anything. I thought I did have a good wee look, and I've investigated old physical dictionaries, 7 language dictionaries, and that's the best I could come up with, I think. So I'd be interested if anybody has got some meaning to that word or etymology, because I don't really think it's meaningless, and I don't think Frank has inserted it there. But as I said, it's not a thing we'll hear again, I think. So no refreshments. Talk will suffice. The guest's wishes is a command. And settling to the cushion that faced Scytale, here we go. We're told, blessed is Abu Dadur, father of the indefinite roads of time. And this is again another code here. Abu's father, I suppose. I'm basically going with father time there, I think. Scytale's thoughts after having said this are there. I've told him straight out that I came from a guild steersman and wear the steersman's concealment. Father of the indefinite roads of time, I suppose. So again, what's being said isn't what's being meant. And I suppose we're getting to follow this through the thoughts of the characters. But Farrak says, thrice blessed, folding his hands into his lap in the ritual clasp, were old, heavily veined hands, we're told. So here we get a bit more of this. I don't know. Some of this talk, it's not done badly or anything. It used to be a thing, I suppose, a trope where it could get quite silly in certain films. The albatross is green. Next Tuesday, this kind of thing. Strangely bizarre sentences that probably get you more notice than not. But Scytale says here, an object seen from a distance betrays only its principle. I was having to think about this just as an idea, and I thought that was kind of problematic, to be honest with you. General idea that reveals, I don't know, only gives you a sense of it, I suppose. Objects seen from a distance might not reveal a thing about it. Depends on it's a strange statement to make, isn't it? Problematic, revealing he wished. Apparently, this means I wish to discuss the Emperor's fortress keep. I suppose, which would be the object seen from a distance. Farrak says that which is dark and evil may be seen for evil at any distance. And apparently, as much as that a comment on Paul and his keep, we're told it's advising delay. So it makes us wonder about all this double talk, I suppose. How have they learned this, or how does it work? Scytale wondered why. But he said, how did your son lose his eyes? So he's changed the subject here on his delay. And Farrak tells him that the Naraj defenders used a stone burner. My son was too close. Cursed atomics. Even the stone burners should be allowed. Even the stone... should be outlawed. Sorry, that's my handwriting. I didn't think that made sense. Should be allowed. Should be outlawed. O-U-T. Yeah, just left the letter out there. That's appalling. Sorry about that, folks. Even the stone burner should be outlawed. And Scytale agrees with, it skirts the intent of the law. And he thought, a stone burner on Naraj? We weren't told of that. Why does this old man speak of stone burners here? And I think that's quite important. And I'm wondering, is Farrak trying to hint at something here? Because it's an odd thing to drop into conversation, isn't it? And I suppose this is the cause of his son's loss of eyesight. We're going to see a stone burner in action in Dune Messiah, and it's interesting that Scytale doesn't know about this. I suppose the question is, why didn't we know about this? So it's a suggestion that it's possibly some other member of the conspiracy or something. There's some other part of the conspiracy, some other group might have been involved with this. But the thing that he's curious is, we weren't told of that. Why does this old man speak of stone burners here? And that's a good question. And it doesn't seem to have a double meaning that's implicit to Scytale. And I think as the plot progresses, we'll see. I'm wondering, is that Farrokh trying to tell him something about a stone burner on Arrakis? Twi'leksu eyes. Farrokh says, I offered to buy Twi'leksu eyes for him from your masters. But there's a story in the Legions that Twi'leksu eyes enslave their users. My son told me that such eyes are metal, and he is flesh, and that such a union must be sinful. Now, I suppose this is one of the overhangs from the Butlerian Jihad, and where we're equating the use of machinery, if you like, and possibly the use of intelligent machinery to some level with religious sin, I suppose. And this is part of, I suppose, the aspect of the Fremen who, the ecological law that they live by encompasses all other aspects of their lives. And I suppose this is the point where actual prescriptions, I suppose, laws are seen as breaking laws equated with sin, I suppose. And not that this is a law, I suppose, but we're thinking on a prescription from the Butlerian Jihad that's kind of not quite, I suppose. The other thing I was thinking about this was that it didn't really make sense to me either. That as much as the Fremen are there, perhaps they don't have things like fillings and hip joints and metal plates and stuff for your arms and legs and injuries, this kind of thing. But the integration of metal into the human body has been going around for a long time. And if you wanted to put it into context within human civilization, if you want to argue that, say, up to a point where you could talk about where Erewhon, Samuel Butler's Erewhon discusses kind of machines and all this stuff, but take it all the way back to the Romans and the Greeks, prosthetics and things like that. I don't know. It's interesting, but just the whole, it's made of metal, therefore I don't want it, doesn't quite seem to make sense. But I suppose, interesting enough, I'm thinking even the Fremen's weapons, the Fremen's crysknives aren't made of metal. My son told me that such eyes are metal, and he is flesh, that such a union must be sinful. Scytale says the principle of an object must fit its original intent. And this is him trying to turn the conversation back again. It's basically, that's form follows function, isn't it? Farrokh's lips went thin, but he nodded. Speak openly of what you wish. We must put our trust in your steersman. So this is good. Basically, I suppose all the double talk at this point has ended. We've got to the point where and it's quite tricky to sort of read through this, I suppose. We've got to this point where Scytale's been able to communicate to Farrokh that we're under the protection of a guild steersman, so we don't have to worry about being observed by somebody with prescient vision. Hence thrice blessed, I suppose. So in that case, speak openly of what you wish. We must put our trust in your steersman. The principle of an object must fit its original intent. I suppose, just backing up quickly to that, it's not a denial from Scytale, is it? The principle of an object must fit its original intent. So if that's the principle of the eyes, story in the Legions that they enslave their users. My son told me such eyes are metal and he is flesh. Such a union must be sinful. The principle of an object must fit its original intent. Now we take that the eyes are made so that you can see, but it's not a denial, is it? Farrokh's lips went thin, and then he nodded. Speak openly of what you want. I suppose, again, that's not necessarily what it's about, though, is it? There's Cynthia saying, Farrak's superstition that off-world eyes see things they shouldn't see might suggest the kind of slavery he is wary of regarding Tleilaxu eyes. Yeah, that's a good point. The kind of slavery he's wary of. I suppose we're going to see that neither Farak nor his son are particularly nice people in this. And that there's a double standard there. I wonder what you think, Cynthia. My son told me that such eyes are metal, and he's fled. Such a union must be sinful that they enslave him. But look, we're going as we get into this later on, we'll find out what Farak's son has done to Othim's daughter, and surely that's a form of enslavement with a drug, isn't it? The level of hypocrisy there, I suppose. Okay, speak openly. So, Scytale says, "Have you entered?" Hang on a second. Sorry. Yeah, Scytale says, "Have you ever entered the Molitor Imperial Keep?" Before I go on, let's see. That's an odd Molitor. German surname for Miller, I suppose. Builder, constructor, is Molitor. In Latin, we've got moles, which is a pile or a heap. But molior is a verb to strive, construct, undertake, to start, or to begin, I suppose. The only other thing I suppose got about this was Molitor. We're always looking just to check names and things if they have any kind of hidden meaning. Excuse me. And occasionally we have the odd science fiction authors sneaked in to odd names. The only other thing I could think of going with the water theme here, which kind of fitted with what was that name previously that we had that's possibly the name of Barris, for example. Water Association. The only other thing I could think of that why would Frank Herbert use this term is the famous swimming pool in Paris. Trying to think, what's the word for gate? Right. Near the Molitor Gate, I suppose, isn't it? Check it out. Piscine, as in scaly piscine, Piscine. Molitor, Molitor. If you type it in, you should find a wee picture of it somewhere on the internet there. So, have you ever entered the Molitor Imperial Keep? So, Farrak responds, I was there for the feast celebrating the Molitor victory. I'm going to think Molitor is a planet, possibly. It was cold in all that stone, despite the best Ixian space heaters. We slept on the terrace of Alia's Fane the night before. A fane is from the Latin fanum, is a temple. So we slept on the terrace of Alia's temple, is what they mean there. He has trees in there, trees from many worlds. We Bashars were dressed in our finest green robes and had our tables set apart. We ate and drank too much. I was disgusted with some of the things I saw. The walking wounded came, dragging themselves along on their crutches. I do not think our Muad'Dib knows how many men he maimed. I think that's an interesting statement because I've written next to that, as opposed to killed. And I've also sort of been asking here: is there an opposition to the disabled here from Farrak? And I was going to go: does that opposition expand into opposition to the disabled having sex? Is that a taboo for the Fremen? Especially, I suppose the point being, we understand what the Fremen do with their They leave them with their disabled. They basically leave them to the desert. Um, Death by exposure, or the desert take them, or a worm will take them. This kind of thing. So Scytale says, you objected to the feast. Speaking from, and we're told this is a little bit that made me think about this, speaking from a knowledge of Fremen orgies, which were ignited by spice beer. Now, this is the little bit here. It was not like the mingling of our souls in the siege. There was no Tao. For entertainment, the troops had slave girls, and the men shared their stories of their battles and their wounds. So basically, I get the suggestion that the feast, if there's spice beer there, is there a bit of an orgy going on? It seems that it's just Fremen troops, Fremen soldiers with slave girls. So I was questioning, where are the Fremen women? If you see what I mean. Why aren't the way, if we remember the way Fremen men are welcomed back at the siege, these guys back, I was actually thinking there for a minute. I almost got to the point where I thought this place was on Arrakis. So I think it's that. It's just that the Fremen women are back home. And it's almost like this. It's if we see like Farrak's nostalgia and all, the walking wanderer about slave girls, it's almost like it's ruined sex for them as well. You get a sense that nothing's right for this guy. And Scytale says, so you were inside that great pile of stone. In fact, I have to have a look about this Molitor. I don't know. Maybe just getting the sense that it's, I suppose, maybe just code for Muad'Dib's keep on Arrakis. So Farrak says, Muad'Dib came out to the terrace. Good fortune to us all, he said. The greeting drill of the desert in that place. Scytale says, do you know the location of his private apartments? Deep inside. Somewhere deep inside, I am told he and Chani live a nomadic life, and that all within the walls of their keep. Was that the bit that I found about? I just thought didn't work right. Let me just quickly check the text here. I was wondering, was it a misprint or something? Let me just see. Nomadic life, 34, my notes. There you go. Yeah. I am told he and Chani live a nomadic life, and that all within the walls of their keep. I don't know. I think it needs punctuation, or it's missing a word or something. It doesn't quite make sense to me. I do get it, but it doesn't. I don't know if anybody else agrees with me on that. It doesn't seem to flow quite well, that sentence. So out to the great hall he comes for the public audiences. He has reception halls and formal meeting places, a whole wing for his personal guard, places for the ceremonies, and an inner section for communications. There is a room far beneath his fortress where he keeps a stunted worm surrounded by a water moat with which to poison it. Here is where he reads the future. Pardon me. Oh, and Scytale's thoughts here are myth all tangled up with facts. And there we have a wee worm kept encircled by a moat of water. Quite cruel, isn't it, I suppose? Something has to suffer for Paul's visions in a way. Excuse me. So, myth all tangled up with facts. Farrak says the apparatus of government accompanies him everywhere. Clerks and attendants for the attendants. He trusts only the ones such as Stilgar, who were very close to him in the old days. And Scytale says, not you. And Farrak says, I think he has forgotten my existence. How does he come and go when he leaves that building? And Farrak says, he has a tiny thopter landing which juts out from an inner wall. I am told Muad'Dib will not permit another to handle the controls for a landing there. It requires an approach, so it is said, where the slightest miscalculation would plunge him down a sheer cliff of a wall into one of the accursed gardens. And this is most likely true, Scytale noted. An aerial entry to the Emperor's quarters would carry a measure of security. The Atreides were superb pilots all. So here we have a nice, interesting little bit here. Farrak says he uses men to carry his distrans messages. It demeans men to implant wave translators in them. A man's voice should be his own to command. It should not carry another man's message hidden within its sound. And Scytale just shrugs at this. Now, I think there's this. How much does Farrak actually know? Probably a fair bit, but there's it demeans them to implant the wave translators in them. So his son has one in them, as we'll find out. Obviously, and Scytale does too. Loathsome disease which deprived him of his manhood. I'm starting to think this is Barris, especially as it's a little cul-de-sac, I suppose, and there's not many people living there. The youth is Barris. I think there's a fair. I think it's a reasonable enough to suspect that. I think. So they said, I have to leave early tonight. We'll mull over the developing theme of eyesight in the coming week. Cheers. No problem, Cynthia. Yes, indeed. I suppose vision, and eyesight, sight, I suppose, real sight, but the nature of the lethal nature of the prescient vision, I suppose. But yes, indeed, there's lots of it on on display here. But take it easy, Cynthia, and thank you very much, as always. It's a very dialogue-heavy little chapter here, I suppose. But I suppose we're almost into plain talking. So Scytale shrugs. All the great powers use distrans in this age, we're told. One could never tell what object might be placed between a sender and addressee. Distrans defied political cryptology. We're told why. It relied on subtle distortions of natural sound patterns, which could be scrambled with enormous intricacy. So I've scribbled down, it's basically, as far as I can tell, it's an encryption-decryption device that kind of works a bit like a modem as well, I suppose. That you encrypt the thing and then modulate it, I suppose. Does that make sense? That it needs to be demodulated and then decrypted. Well, that's kind of what I got from it. Interesting. I went and bought a wee book on bat sonar when I was researching this bat echolocation and stuff like that. Quite interesting. Yeah, I must take that one out for you. It's about it somewhere. I should someday grab the very, very strange books I bought because I was looking at Dune. But I thought I needed to know a wee bit more about distrans and bats and things like that. So, Farrak complained, even his tax officials use this method. So it seems to be something that Muad'Dib and his government are fine with. It's a Fremen superstition here. In my day, the distrans was implanted only in the lower animals. So it's pretty much for the Fremen, it's birds and bats, isn't it? That kind of thing. And Scytale's thoughts here. But even revenue information must be kept secret. More than one government has fallen because people discovered the real extent of official wealth. And Scytale says, how do the Fremen cohorts feel now about Muad'Dib's Jihad? Do they object to making a god out of their emperor? And it's a very good question, isn't it? How do you all feel now about your Jihad? You know, how's that working out for you? How do you like that you've turned your emperor into a god? You know, this guy used to hang around me. So here I suppose is the motivation. Most of them don't even consider this, Farrak says. Don't even think about it. Excuse me. They think of the Jihad the way I thought of it. And I think this is quite interesting from Farrak. It's quite honest. Most of them It's a source of strange experiences, adventure, wealth. This graben hovel in which I live, it cost 60 litres of spice, 90 contars. There was a time when I could not even imagine such riches. Um, and he shook his head. And I've written down here, it's funny that I think Scytale's going to back it up in a second, but I just thought his house sounded quite nice. To be honest with you. He's got his own atrium and his own courtyard. The divan for guests. It sounds like he's doing well for himself. Litres then. 60 litres of spice, 90 contars. Lead is the Norse word to suffer, to endure, and is the Old English word for a sailor. In Latin, though, it's lightus, isn't it? Is a word for strand. We've got, was it Portshire strand, just here, a shore, a beach, that kind of thing. So again, kind of lots of words loaded towards watery things, if you like. Contour I put down is to add up, to count, to tally. It actually comes from the Latin computo, which is to reckon, if you like. Though Frank is going to present a different thing here in a minute, and I don't have any other evidence for it. So across the courtyard, we're told the blind youth took up the notes of a love ballad on his balisette. Oh, that was a good one here. Love ballads on my balisette from Scytale. So 90 contars were told. Scytale's thoughts here are kind of quite interesting. How strange. Great riches, certainly. Farrak's hovel would be a palace on many another world. I thought it's a palace on another world, it's a palace on this world, I suppose, as well. But all things are relative, as Scytale points out. Even the contour. Did Farrak know, for example, know whence come his measure for the weight of spice? So contours are for the weight of spice. Oh, 60 litres, possibly an equivalent. Did he ever think to himself, though, 1.5 contour once limited a camel load? Not likely. Farrak might never even have heard of a camel or of the golden age of Earth. I suppose the question becomes, how does Scytale know about it? And is it to do with some kind of other memory? This kind of thing. And I know that there's a book about camels and camel trains that I think Frank Herbert looked at, and I don't have it, unfortunately. So I don't know if anybody is familiar with the term or if anyone knows anything about camels. But I genuinely had a look around and couldn't find the word in any variant of spelling. So I might be mistaken. Maybe I was just looking in the wrong place, or my search engine was having a bad day. Got surname here, Contar. Wikipedia. Oh, here, hang on. That's an alternative spelling. No. Oh, here we are. Oh, for goodness sake. Right, I've just found something. There we go. Hang on. A cantar. Oh, right. That's not where I went with my spelling changes. Is the official Egyptian weight unit for measuring cotton. It corresponds to the United States hundredweight and is roughly equal to 99.05 pounds or 45.2 kilograms. Is equal to either 157 kilograms of seed cotton or 50 kilograms of lint cotton. Aha. I think that's where that word comes from. I'm going to scribble that down. Kantar, it's Kantar. Oh, Egyptian weight for measuring cotton. That sounds more like it. I'm glad I gave it a shot there. This goes to show you shouldn't give up, should you? Who knows what you'll find. There we go. And a reference to the golden age of Earth, I suppose. His words oddly in rhythm to the melody of his son's balisette. Farrak says, I owned a crysknife, water rings to 10 litres, my own lance, which had been my father's, a coffee service, a bottle made of red glass, older than any memory in my siege. I had my own share of spice, but no money. I was rich and did not know it. 2 wives I had, one plain and clear to me, the other stupid and obstinate, but with the form and face of an angel. I was a Fremen naib, a rider of worms, master of the Leviathan and all of the sand. It kind of reminds me if you were to see this in the cinema, I suppose if we were to, it kind of reminded me on Wayne's World. And it's the bit where they have the guy at the petrol station and substitute. You'd want a really good actor for this role, wouldn't you? Farrak's got a lot to say in this, and I suppose if we think about what's happened to Farrak, what he's been through, all of this, the promises, and the state that we sort of see him in, it kind of does make you pity him, I suppose, and I suppose it echoes to me a lot of the promises made to young men, in armies and things like this in times past. Adventure, let's go make a difference, this kind of thing. And often, isn't it, with soldiers and war and all that, these people come back badly changed. And that there is nothing good about war at all, I suppose. But it's, I don't know. And Farrak is a character that I by the time we get to the end of this chapter, I don't have any sympathy for him or his son. And I tend to think quite harshly of the two of them, to be honest with you. They're a pair of predators, as far as I'm concerned in this. As is Scytale. But it's a lot of self-pity and nostalgia and what do we call it? Remember berries, this kind of thing. And it's not a good thing, is it? And in one sense, if you like, things have moved on for Farrak and the Fremen since the arrival of Paul and Muad'Dib. They've always been looking forward to a dream, and it's almost as if that they have this part of this dream in the now, and that Farrak is now looking back with nostalgia to the golden times, when he had a few possessions. I suppose the question becomes, what's happened to his 2 wives? Where are they? Where's his little red bottle? What happened to his what happened to all these things? Why aren't they about him in his home? If you see what I mean. I don't see that there's well, I suppose he's lost an arm as well, isn't he? I suppose by the Fremen Association that Farrak is disabled too, should be given to the desert. So the youth across the courtyard picked up the beat of his melody. I knew many things without the need to think about them. I knew there was water far beneath our sand, held there in bondage by the little makers. I knew that my ancestors sacrificed virgins to Shai Halud before Liat Kynes made us stop. So that wasn't that long ago. And that's not Pardo Kynes either. That's Liat Kynes made them stop. Pardo didn't do so. It was wrong of us to stop. So it's wrong. It was wrong of us to stop sacrificing virgins to the giant worms. I had seen the jewels in the mouth of the worm. My soul had 4 gates, and I knew them all. He fell silent, musing. And then the Atreides came with his witch mother, said Scytale, almost prompting him here. Now, that's really interesting to me. And especially in the previous chapter, we had Chani discuss the ancient ways at a religious ceremony that she's witnessed, but she said she didn't take part in them. And we kind of wonder, what does that mean based on this? That there are Fremen trying to resurrect the ancient ways. In many ways, we were talking about what I suppose the Trojan War and what we have is what following on is the Bronze Age collapse. And the core of these myths that come out of this period of time. So you can include, a lot of the Greek myths, if you like, but particularly around the Pelopid line ultimately, what we call the Atreides, the House of Atreus, all of this stuff. Um, you can run with a number of your Old Testament stories and various other tales from the world at this time, if you like, that you can find in epics and sagas and stuff like that. And fundamentally, almost all of them have something in common. Um, and that ultimately, if you want to go run with the Trojan War, all of those stories, all of those myths, what's the end goal? It seems that ultimately is to stop human sacrifice as a practice within that part of the world, and that those stories within all the different themes and aspects of them, whatever way you want to look at them, that fundamentally at the core of them are things like cannibalism and human sacrifice, ritual sacrifice. And so it's the thing that's associated with the Atreides family, the Pelopid line, um, and a number of Greek myths in particular, I suppose. Um, my ancestors sacrificed virgins to Shai-Hulud before late Kynes made us stop. I also think that's kind of not been. Farrok's probably quite old at this point. If we think that late Kynes died 12 years ago, um, or sorry, 15 years ago, we'll say. Uh, late, I suppose it should be within his living memory. Does that make sense? As much as his ancestors sacrificed virgins, based on what we've been told here, his ancestors, he means his parents and grandparents. If it's late Kynes that made them stop, um, interesting. Yeah, we shouldn't. The superstition of that. But yeah, I suppose I do think that there's all sorts of stories about sacrifices and stuff like this and how they work, and some of them are quite interesting. I think you'll find one of my favorite ones is the trick at Macon, I suppose, which is kind of a retcon, isn't it? It's a story that explains backward explains, if you like, why human beings sacrifice meat and fat to the gods instead of the juicy portions of meat and all this kind of stuff, and it's to do with Prometheus. I'm pretty sure there's a similar story in the Bible actually about why we sacrifice to the fat and bones, this kind of thing. But and I suppose the thing that I find interesting is it's the real underlay, if you like, it's the cultural underlay within these stories that sacrificing, human sacrifice virgins from different states, for example, in chariot races and breaking people on wheels, all sorts of things. And I suppose that's in the Western world, if you like. If you go over to Mesoamerica, South America, with the practices that were going on there, you see human sacrifice going on for quite some time. But it's a thing just to point out that's fundamentally associated with the Atreides family, and perhaps that ultimately the end goal of all of those stories is that practice ends, I suppose. But the Trojan War begins with a human sacrifice, really, doesn't it? And what one could argue that the Trojan War begins with the sacrifice of one child and it ends with the murder of another. If you see what I mean. But yeah, a very interesting little point. And yeah, my life's so bad. I wish we could go back to sacrificing virgins. It was wrong of us to stop. And so I'm kind of wondering, has he fallen out of the Fremen dream, if you like? Then the Atreides came with his witch mother Scytale, says, prompting this guy, and he says that then the Atreides came, the one we named Usul in our siege, his private name among us. And I've written down next, that's a paradoxical statement because he's just told Scytale. So there's nothing private about the name Usul here, or again, this is possibly a suggestion as to Farrok's dissatisfaction. Excuse me. If you see what I mean with Muad'Dib and the empire of Muad'Dib. And here's another one. So I think that's a real kicker. The whole sacrifice virgin things gives us a bit of a different look at the Fremen, doesn't it? But our next statement here, we have to question whether it's true or not, but I think it is. And it's a really important statement. I'll just read that bit again. Then the Atreides came, the one we named Usul in our siege, his private name among us, just told his face to answer. Our Muad'Dib, our Mahdi, possessive, isn't it? And it again reminds you what Chani said to Paul, that you belong to the Fremen, and Muad'Dib belongs to the Fremen. Here it is. Excuse me. And when he called for the jihad, was one of those who asked. I was one of those who asked, why should I go to fight there? So the implication is that the whole, now whether it's true or not, I suppose, is Farrakh remembering correctly? I don't see there's any reason why he wouldn't be. But when he called for the jihad, that's Paul he's talking about. When Paul called for the jihad, when Muad'Dib called for the jihad, when Usul called for the jihad, whatever we want to say about it, whatever name we want to give it, it's our hero has called for the jihad. And this is the thing, I suppose the notes that I was talking about at the start of the chapter, this is the thing that he's supposed to be having the strongest desire to avoid. The thing that gives him is a great source of angst to Paul in Dune is can I avoid the jihad that's coming? And you get a sense that it's something that's beyond his power, regardless of what he does. So the question is, I suppose, has he actively gone ahead and done it? But I suppose it is yes, isn't it? And when this statement seems to really let us know that. When he called for the jihad, I was one of those who asked, why should I go to fight there? I have no relatives there. But other men went, young men, friends, companions of my childhood. When they returned, they spoke of wizardry, of the power in this Atreides savior. He fought our enemy, the Harkonnen. Late Kings, who promised us a paradise upon our planet, blessed him. It was said that Atreides came to change our world and our universe, that he was the man to make the golden flower blossom in the night. And Farrakh held up his hands and examined the palms. Men pointed to the first moon and said, his soul is there. Thus he was called Muad'Dib. I did not understand all of this. And he lowered his hands and stared across the courtyard at his son. I had no thoughts in my head. There were thoughts only in my heart and my belly and my loins. And again, we're told the tempo of the background music increases. So this is going along with this music all the time. And here we go. Why Farrakh enlisted here? Do you know why I enlisted in the jihad? His old eyes stared hard at Scytale. I heard there was a thing called a sea. It is very hard to believe in a sea when you have lived only here among our dunes. We had no seas. Men of Dune had never known a sea. We had our wind traps. We collected water for the great change. Late Kings promised us this great change Muad'Dib is bringing with a wave of his hand. I could imagine a quannet, water flowing across the land on a canal. From this, my mind could picture a river, but a sea. Farrakh gazed at a translucent cover of his courtyard as though trying to probe into the universe beyond. A sea, voice low. It was too much for my mind to picture. Yet men I knew said they had seen this marvel. I thought they lied, but I had to know for myself. It was for this reason I enlisted. It's too much for my mind to picture. I suppose the funny thing that I've asked is, didn't anybody take a photograph or a film book or something of anybody who went to see these things on these foreign planets Has nobody taken a photo or nobody drawn a picture or anything like this? That it's not impossible for this man to see what a sea looks like. You know, too much from my mind to picture. Saying that, we were discussing the other week. You know that I've never been to a real desert or anything like that, and I've seen them on the TV, and I can look at it and get a sense of the scale, even from satellite photos and all sorts of things. But the heat of it, the smell of it, the feel and the touch of it, you have to be there, wouldn't you? I suppose. So it's the desire to see something so utterly alien, I suppose, opposite to his own world, the sea. Um, Actually, went to university with a guy in London, and he was English, and he came over here to stay with us for a bit on a trip. Just come on over, and he'd never seen the sea before, and he must have been 19 or 20 at that point. Quite odd to me. I've lived all over the place in Northern Ireland, but almost everywhere I've lived, pretty much right next to the sea. Most people live on the coast here. So it's interesting what we find alien and what we're used to, I suppose. But a sea, it was too much for my mind to picture. A bit of a failure of the imagination, I think, on old Farrock's part, maybe. He struck a loud final chord on the balisette and took up a new song with an oddly undulating rhythm. "Did you find your sea?" asked Scytale. But Farrock remained silent, and Scytale thought the old man had not heard. The balisette music rose around them and fell like a tidal movement. Farrock breathed to its rhythm. There was a sunset. One of the elder artists might have pictured such a sunset. There we go, paintings in Fremen culture. It had red in its colour of the glass in my bottle. There was gold, blue. It was on the world called ensue, the one where I led my legion to victory. We came out of a mountain pass where the air was thick with water. I could scarcely breathe it, and there below me was the thing my friends had told me about. Water as far as I could see and further. We marched down to it. I waded out into it and drank. It was bitter and made me ill, but the wonder of it has never left me. And Scytale, we're told, found himself sharing the old man's awe. The sea here is incredible. I'm just right next to it, and I suppose where I live is kind of, we call it the Triangle area. I suppose around the Giant's Causeway, it's three towns. Korean, Port Rush, and Port Stewart make up the Causeway Triangle, if you like, and we're all on the coast. Particularly Port Stewart, whenever the wind gets up on the Atlantic there, you'll get gigantic rocks, massive rocks hurled off onto the street, from the sea, damaging property. Stuff happens. It's kind of starting to happen quite regularly. But pardon me, we get a real sense of the power of the sea here, and it's very beautiful, and terrifying at the same time. Yeah, and he goes down and he drinks from it, and he's a bit sick. But yet Scytale found himself sharing the old man's awe. I suppose also possibly part of the Tleilax's ability to sympathise with its victims, if you like. But I think it's genuine. So it's a bit like that Wayne's World thing where you'd want a really good actor to do this, wouldn't you? The Farrock speaking is quite powerful here. It really sells the nostalgia and the sense of wonder. The idea of a man going to see a sea for the first time, that it makes him leave his home world and go on a holy war, if you like. There's no reason to go to war, is it? Just to see something. One man sank beneath that. Sorry, I missed a bit. Farrock said, "I immersed myself in that sea." I said, looking down at the water creatures worked into the tiles in the floor. One man sank beneath that water. Another man rose from it. This is him. I suppose form of baptism in a way, isn't it? A bit. I felt that I could remember a past which had never been. I could stare around me with eyes which could accept anything, anything at all. I saw a body in the water, one of the defenders we had slain. There was a log nearby, supported on the water, a piece of a great tree. I can close my eyes now and see that log. It was black on one end from a fire, and there was a piece of cloth in that water, no more than a yellow rag, torn, dirty. I looked at all these things and I understood why they had come to this place. It was for me to see them. He turned slow and stared into Scytale's eyes. The universe is unfinished, you know. And Scytale's thoughts here. This one is garrulous but deep. You know, fond of talking trivial nonsense, but he's deep. I can see it made a profound impression on you, he says. It's quite an interesting little statement, actually. The universe is unfinished, you know. I think I was chatting to you guys. I was just recently reading. Have we got it here? Hang on. It's yeah, and I think I was saying John Harrison's Light, John Harrison's Light. That sentiment, if you like, the universe is unfinished. You know, there's always something new. It's kind of hard to explain this book, Light, but I kind of got a sense of, ultimately, of hope that there always will be something new, if you see what I mean. And it's to do with the monster in it, isn't it? The Shrander. Sorry, I was just trying to see if I could find something that was very much on a similar vein there. So he's trying to find a sentence in the book. I just not there. Yeah, it's hopeful in a way that there's always something new. Universe is unfinished, you know. There's always something you haven't seen. I got that sense from this book that was what it was ultimately about. The three different stories that connect with this strange monster at different points in time and so on. Yeah, as I said, when I finished the book, it's one of those that has one of the great science fiction cliches. It's just it ends with the words "the beginning," which is kind of a bit hateful. I think sometimes it's been done so many past. And it doesn't really do anything to give it to say that, but it's it doesn't give anything away, I suppose. But just the sense of the monster and what it's about and stuff. There's always something new. There's something out there to be experienced. You know, no matter how far we go into life or whatever we think throws at, there's always something new. The universe is unfinished. I like it. It's an interesting statement, and as Scytale points out, garrulous but deep. This one's deep, and it made a profound impression on you. I'm sure we've all got something like that you've seen something in your life that's just kind of hit you for a moment and just go, whoa, is it embedded in your memory? It might be scenery, it might be an animal or something, you know, anything. A stellar event. I've had a few weird things in my life, just ding, you know, logged and filed, and I'll not forget them, if you know what I mean. But it makes you wonder about the universe and everything in it. There's Carl saying, reminds me of the first time I saw a hurricane making landfall. You're dwarfed by the scale and power. Yeah, nature really can just put you in your place, isn't it? You've got to respect it. You know, and it's a lot more powerful, I think, than people give it credit for. But yeah, I suppose we have an air ambulance that operates around here, quite a lot for people to get involved and around the seas and the rivers. You know, it's excuse me. I think we've got a sort of thriving surf community here, I think, these days. Yeah, but yeah, you definitely get. Oh yeah, it can get very rough here some nights, and You've got to respect nature when it's not being funny, you know. Hmm. There's universes unfinished, you know. So it's like he's a witness. He was meant to be there at that particular time. Why was he there? Why had he come to this place? It was for me to see them, to be a witness, to be there at that time. The universe is unfinished. There's always something new to see, I think. Um, Varric says, you're a Tleilaxu. You've seen many seas. I've seen only this one. Yet I know a thing about seas which you do not. Oh, the schedule found himself in the grip of an odd feeling of disquiet. Oh, really? What do you think? You know this kind of thing. And he says, this is what Farrokh says: the mother of chaos was born in the sea. A Khazara Tafid stayed nearby when I came dripping from that water. He had not entered the sea. He stood on the sand. It was wet sand, with some of my men who shared his fear. He watched me with eyes that knew I had learned something which was denied to him. I had become a sea creature, and I frightened him. The sea healed me of the jihad, and I think he saw this. And again, just running with that vision, if eyes, etc., those themes and motifs within this whole book, really. Watch me with eyes that knew I had learned something which was denied to him. I had become a sea creature, not a desert creature, and I frightened him. The sea healed me of the jihad, and I think he saw this. And as I suppose was, has it given Farrokh some kind of peace or wonderment? The Khazara Tafid is the is the priests of Muad'Dib, isn't it? It's a term we've looked at before, but I'll just quickly dig it out of the terminology of the Imperium. So these are slightly different spelling in Dune. Fremen priests after Muad'Dib. You get very much that kind of Warhammer 40k. You see where Warhammer 40k gets a lot of its stuff from, I suppose. Don't you? The sea healed me of the jihad, and I think he saw this. It might have done that, but it certainly caused him bitterness, hasn't it? Scytale realized that somewhere in this recital, the music had stopped and found it disturbing. He could not place the instant the balisette had fallen silent. As though relevant to what he'd been recounting, Farrokh said, every gate is guarded. There's no way into the Emperor's fortress. Scytale replied, that's a weakness. And Farrokh stretched his neck upwards, peering. There's a way in. The fact that most men, including, we may hope, the Emperor, believe otherwise, that's to our advantage. It's kind of a stupid statement to make. Actually, Farrokh says every gate is guarded. There's no way into the fortress. There's lots of gates. They're just guarded. So I would take that as okay. There's lots of ways in. How do we get past the guards? That's where I would go. It's not that there's no way in. I suppose Paul's personal little landing pad, etc. That's something else. But it's certainly not it doesn't seem to be impossible. There's a way in. That's it. Yeah, we just hope for it, believe otherwise. That's to our advantage. If they don't think so, I suppose if they're not going to look for a way to stop us. And he rubbed his lips, feeling the strangeness of the visage he had chosen. It's an odd little thing that Scytale taking on the face of Duncan Idaho, because it amuses him. Not part and parcel of his job, and he actually considers it a risk, but it's at the point where he enters this house, it's too late to do anything about it. The musician's silence, we're told, bothered him. Did it mean Farrokh's son, and here we go, was through transmitting? That had been the way of it, naturally. The message condensed and transmitted within the music, it had been impressed upon Scytale's own neural system, there to be triggered at the proper moment by the distrans embedded in his adrenal cortex. If it was ended, he had become a container of unknown words. He was a vessel sloshing with data, every cell of the conspiracy here on Arrakis, every name, every contact phrase, all the vital information. A pet hate of mine, I've written down, information is not data. Um, sorry, I'm a computer guy. It's one of the things that really bothers me is when people talk about information and data as if they're the same thing, and it just shows a wee bit of a level of ignorance. But data has no meaning to human beings. Information has plenty. But he says with this information, so they're being used, um, interchangeably, I suppose. Um, with this information, we're told they could brave Arrakis, capture a sandworm, begin the culture of melange somewhere beyond Muad'Dib's writ. They could break the monopoly, and as they broke Muad'Dib, and could do many things with this information. Now, that's pretty, and that's the main plot point, I suppose. Ultimately, what are the Twi'leks up to? Plots within plots within plots. It's all about we'll go after Paul and Chani, and we'll get do this. But ultimately, there's another plan in action that he's hoping to put in action, and possibly an even further another one. But what do the Twi'leks want? They want to get a sandworm. And it could be the conspiracy in general. Actually, I'm going to have a wee thought. Well, we'll find out as we go, I suppose. To capture a sandworm and to transplant it somewhere else, basically, to begin the culture of melange somewhere else, and break the monopoly. And yeah, I suppose the spice ultimately would be the power base if it's not unique. And as of course, how spice works throughout the books changes, I suppose, a little bit, but we learn quite a bit about it as we go. But ultimately, then we will eventually get within the 6 books an artificial form of melange to break that monopoly. It's a long way away, though. Now, the woman, as I've put here, now the woman is that we're going to be talking about is Othim's daughter, who I believe is called Lichna. Now, yeah, this is all about, and just remember about the conversations that we've had about human sacrifice. I think ultimately Lichna is a sacrifice, especially in the way that Farrok's been talking about it there, that we shouldn't have stopped sacrificing virgins, this kind of thing. We have the woman here. Do you wish to see her now? Excuse me. So we're kind of jumping topic here a wee bit. Scytale says, I've seen her. I've studied her with care. Where is she? Farrok snapped his fingers. So the youth now takes up his rebec, changes instruments, and drew his bow across it. The Samuta music wailed from the strings. As though drawn by the sound, a young woman in a blue robe emerged from the doorway behind the musician. And here her eyes are narcotic dullness filled her eyes. The total blue of Ibad. I suppose if you just want to take the Fremen in the room here as a sample of the Fremen population post Muad'Dib's rule, if you like, we have one girl here drugged up that her eyes are filled with narcotic dullness. The male youth here is blind, and Farrok has lost an arm. So the Fremen aren't looking in particularly good shape, I suppose, considering what we know of them. Narcotic dullness filled her eyes. The total blue of Ibad. She was a Fremen, addicted to the spice, now caught by an off-world vice. Her awareness lay deep within the Samuta, lost somewhere and riding the ecstasy of the music. Farrok says, this is Othim's daughter. And yeah, here we go. My son gave her the narcotic in the hope of winning a woman. In the hope of winning a woman of the people for himself. Sorry, I'll read that again. That was completely rubbish. My son gave her the narcotic in the hope of winning a woman of the people for himself, despite his blindness. As you can see, his victory is empty. Samuta has taken what he hoped to gain. Her only love is the drug. Now, I've just put down what a complete shit Farrok's son is. So, and it's interesting, I suppose, we mentioned this earlier, about how he viewed being enslaved by Tleilaxu eyes. He's enslaved this girl to a drug deliberately. Um, and she's clearly lost a chunk of her mind to it. It's she's deep inside lost somewhere, and riding the ecstasy of the music. And we'll see that he brainwashes her. In particular, um, what Farrokh and his son do to Ligna here, really does remind me of a lot of the kind of Arabian Nights stories. The princess being kind of hypnotized, this kind of thing, brainwashed. Um, it's a common, it's a thing in some of the more interesting and more notable kind of stories, if you like. I'm even thinking kind of a So, but what an absolute shit motherfucker, basically. Got nothing nice to say about this guy. Son gave her the narcotic in the hope of winning a woman of the people for himself, despite his blindness. As you can see, his victory is empty. Samuda has taken what he hoped to gain. But we'll see, whatever it is he hopes to gain, I think you'll see he's still at it here. Scytale says her father doesn't know. Here we go. She doesn't even know. My son supplies false memories with which she accounts to herself for her visits. She thinks herself in love. She thinks herself in love with him. This is what her family believes. They are outraged because he is not a complete man, but they won't interfere, of course. It's a plot bang out of the Arabian Nights. Several stories like that. And it really did remind me of it. But absolutely, yeah, we're not getting a good representation of the Fremen here, and I suppose Farrokh's complicit in this as well. And the Fremen, she thinks herself in love with him. This is what her family believes. So he's basically planting he's drugged her and then plants false memories in her, that whenever she visits here, then she goes home and tells her family that she's in love with, we'll call him Barris, I think he is Barris, and wants to marry him, this kind of thing. And they're outraged because he's blind. And you think, actually, I don't know, Othim's next door at this point, isn't he? But you think you would know Farrokh. I don't know. The music trailed away in silence, we're told, and at a gesture from the musician, the young woman seated herself beside him and bent close to listen as he murmured to her. And Farrokh, I suppose we're heading to our conclusion here, says, what will you do with her? And once more, Scytale studied the courtyard. And this is kind of a cliche, isn't it? This is this is often what the villain does. If anyone ever asks, are there any more people in this building? You should not answer the person. You should run away. He's probably going to kill you. So anybody else here? That kind of thing. I've just written next to it, uh-oh. That's not good. Farrokh says, we're all here now. You've not told me what you'll do with the woman. It is my son who wishes to know. I bet he does, little creep. So we have violence. Very quick. I mean, it's an interesting way this is done. I think it's a very well written chapter. We learn so much through Farrokh and Farrokh chatting away to Scytale. Scytale, for the most part of it, only gives him the odd wee prompting statement or question. Most of the gabbing's been done by Farrokh, and we've learned quite a bit from him. So we're all here now. Nobody else but us. My son wants to know what are you going to do with the woman. It's him that wishes to know. So, as though about to answer, Scytale extended his right arm, and from the sleeve of his robe, a wee glistening needle darted and embedded itself in Farrokh's neck. No outcry, no change of posture. Farrokh would be dead in a minute. But he sat unmoving, frozen by the dart's poison. So there we go. We've got our first little murdered skull, and I've given Farrokh a little dart in the neck, as you can see. Immediately followed by his son. So Scytale slowly climbed to his feet, quite casual about this, crossed to the blind musician. The youth was still murmuring to the young woman when the dart whipped into him. And Scytale took the young woman's arm and urged her gently to her feet. He shifted his own appearance before she looked at him. So I'll just call her, like, at this point, Orothium's daughter, if you like. And so he's quickly shifted his entire appearance into that of Farok. And she says, "What is it, Farok?" "My son is tired and must rest. Come, we'll go out the back way." And like this says, "We had such a nice talk. I think I convinced him to get Tleilaxu eyes. It'd make a man of him again." That's what I've put there. But haven't I said it many times? Says Scytale as Farok, urging her into a rear chamber, we're told. His voice, he noted with pride, matched his features precisely. Unmistakably, it was the voice of the old Fremen who certainly was dead by this time. Scytale sighed. It had been done with sympathy, he told himself, and his victims certainly had known their peril. Now the young woman would have to be given her chance. She's dead. Pretty much. So it's a great wee chapter. There we are. We've reached the end of it, I suppose. Out of this lot, I suppose, within the four people within this chapter, Scytale has become both Duncan Idaho and then Farok. Farok is deceased. His son is deceased, having relayed all the information, I suppose, of the different cells involved in the conspiracy. The one interesting thing, I suppose, is it does make, if Scytale knows all the information, the whole point of having cells, I suppose, is that no one individual contains all the information. It won't lead to everybody else being captured, if you see what I mean. Is the very whole point of that. I suppose the other thing is, I suppose, is that we get the sense that the Tleilaxu operate within a troop. And I'd imagine that he wouldn't be here on his own, that there's possibly is a troop. But yeah, very deadly. And we get to see a Bene Tleilax in action, a face dancer in action. And I suppose the nature of the violence with the face dancers is pretty similar to what we'll see from them throughout the rest of the book, throughout the rest of the books. When the violence does, but there's a lot of scrutiny, I suppose. And I wonder if it's part of their mimesis process, but very deadly. And we've seen a, I imagine that Farok's quite deadly. Yeah, he's dispatched these people, and he's going to probably take her shape and form. As much as he seems to offer them a way out, I would possibly argue that the Tleilaxu way out is rather hard to find. If you see what I mean, they might give you a way out, but he's there to kill you. Probably not make it too obvious. And I was wondering, is maybe wearing the Duncan Idaho look possibly something to do with that, or is it just a bit of a whimsy of something to amuse him? So we get quite a lot in this chapter, don't we, folks? It's I suppose attitudes to prosthetics and medical replacements, if you like, for limbs and organs. We get the appalling treatment of a woman here, and especially in line with what we're told about the Fremen practicing human sacrifice to within 2 generations, and that they think they should read. These ideas are possibly coming back. The cast out. We're getting a few things that are hinted at that will be picked up later on, and a bunch of new words. Possibly, I don't know. We've got some Dutch, some Iranian, Persian, Sanskrit, possibly some Irish, some Hindi. And I don't know what you think about the word Jadaka. It could be Yadaka, Adaka, I don't know. Adaka, Dadak. Yes, Daka, Tarak. I suppose impulsive, capricious, temperamental. I don't know. It's interesting. And it's interesting, I suppose, to find a word that is. Usually we don't have too much bother tracing words today, but Cantor, that was quite funny. Finding that today kind of amused me, but there you go. I don't know if you have all seen the trailer for Dune, the third trailer that's dropped, and all the little details. I know a number of people are analysing it. It looks quite interesting. I suppose combined with the vision, just to thinking an awful lot of the words. I suppose we didn't look at Enfield there. It was Lamfield, Enfield, if it's come from something like that. But a lot of the words that we've had in this chapter that have borne a bit of scrutiny, if you like, have been water related or pertaining to, shores or beaches, this kind of thing. And we've got this overlay, I suppose, of if we think about Paul Atreides ultimately becoming a desert creature, here we've got a Fremen becoming a sea creature. And I like the way it puts it, the sea healed me of the Jihad. And I think he saw this. But possibly not. I suppose the point there is that the Khazar Tafwid do not want to be healed of their Jihad. They don't want to go into the sea. And it's obviously been violent. This guy's lost an arm. His son is blind. And there's a little comment. I suppose we're going to soon find out about, and it is one of these interesting things when we're given death tolls. If you look at the Troubles, for example, will tell you how many died, but the number of people injured or maimed is vastly greater. And is often the case of these things. We tend to look at death tolls of battles and massacres and things like this and engagements, but more often not, the numbers that are injured and maimed, etc., this kind of thing are much, much higher. I see tonight, I think, is that there's a bit of a mass shooting in Prague, I believe. This kind of thing. But it's a fascinating chapter. It gives us real insight into, I suppose, the Fremen and their and a family here, really, a family unit. Their experiences of Paul's rule, the Jihad, and it really does seem to be that they don't like what they've got, and I'll put it back. I wish it was the way it was. It's a bit, I don't know. But Farrak, that's Farrak on the page, and he's dead. But he's certainly, again, we think about minor characters in Dune. A really fascinating character, and there's a lot of development there just within one chapter, from just being this cantankerous old man at the door, to being part of this conspiracy, to get the sense that he's trying to look after his son as well, but he's doing very bad things, and his son seems to be son's a monster, quite frankly. And if he's allowing his son to do that, he's a monster too. So the treatment of Ligna, Othim's daughter here, by these two Fremen, is also the mention of slave girls, etc., etc., off-world vices, the corruption, the destruction of the Fremen, and that ultimately, I suppose, because of even Paul's Jihad, Scytale is here because of that. Ultimately, it's going to kill them all, isn't it? Farrak's dead here. His son is dead, and Licna's not got long to live, basically, either. That's interesting. And Scytale's pretty fascinating as well. It's kind of hard to get a sense on the face dancers. I'm hoping that I'll pay attention to them as we go through the books a bit more. But Scytale is the one to look at, really, isn't he? And it's the sympathy, I suppose, that we're told that all face dancers have for their victims. But there's something else about him. There's something a tad individual about Scytale, I think. And maybe it's a possible problem with some of the face dancers. But his wearing of the Duncan Idaho persona, the face, etc., for amusement rather than any particular order that he's been given. He's been given a name to use here, for example, Zal. Yeah. And there you go. A Kantar found it as an Egyptian weight for measuring cotton. I wonder where. Sometimes I really do wonder where Frank gets his. Where's his sources for some of these words? And I'm pretty sure it's probably dictionaries. It'd be interesting to know which ones he used actually. But make life a lot easier trying to track some of these words down. But he does play with the words a wee bit, Carl also saying it's interesting that Scytale, a face dancer, later became a ensue master. All the way down, yes. He's the last. Yeah, it's been a long time since I read the books, but yeah, he's at the very end, doesn't he? So Scytale's a major. This Scytale will have an ending, won't he? But he's a major character throughout the series. There's something quite interesting about him, and there's something almost childlike about the face dancers in a funny way. I don't know if that would be a good way of putting it. Something innocent about them, something absorbing that's to do with their mimesis, that their curiosity about others. That it's almost like the mimesis is, I suppose, is kind of full, isn't it, in a way? But it's a desire to maybe, should I use the word grok, an individual before they copy them, if you like. But he's certainly going about his business, and it is a very deceptive little chapter. Once we get past I suppose the point where they go, we can speak openly because we put our trust in your steersman. The conversation becomes a bit easier to follow. If he's celebrating the Molitor victory, have you ever entered the Molitor Imperial Keep? That's a wee bit that confused me a bit, because I got the suggestion that Molitor is another world and that they had a victory on it, but it was have you been in Muad'Dib's Keep after this victory, when they had a party, when they had a feast? I don't know. It's a wee bit tricky. I was just trying to. I assumed that the feast that he was talking about was on Arrakis, if you like, but maybe not. And it's simply maybe overlapping one Imperial Keep on another. I'm not too sure. Again, it actually got me reaching for the map, actually, just to see, could I see anything called Molitor on here, And it was a big no. At least I think I'm wrong with my eyesight, might be missing something. But no, there's a couple of references to geography there within Dune itself, and new places or else places that have been renamed, But yeah, and I suppose there's a number of things here within the chapter. I suppose they point to other things, but basically Scytale's trying to pump Farrak for information about the keep, about Chani and Paul, their movements, etc. How do you get in? This kind of stuff. So we learn quite a bit about their lives there. I suppose the apparatus of government that accompanies him everywhere, clerks and attendants for the attendants, trusts only the one such as Stilgar. And he says not you. So I suppose that we learn that Stilgar still has Paul's trust there, at the very least, Oh goodness, there's the wind picking up there. Very, very cold and stormy outside. It's starting to get a bit chilly in here. I think our girls are outside. I can hear a noodle bug barking. I might have to go bring her in, folks, actually. But yes, indeed. I get the sense that there's something different about Scytale, that there's a sense of individuality. Excuse me for a wee second, folks. Oh, just have to bring that and get you back in. Hello. Oh, I just about done. Sorry, there you go. Good girl, Nudes. Sorry, my wife's just bringing her in there. So there we go. So it's Yeah, I think it's a really good chapter. There's not a lot to sort of pick out, but it's dialogue heavy. I suppose, which is nice. I suppose whenever the chapters are dialogue heavy, we get through them pretty quick. And we just picked out a few sort of words there, hopefully that will help our understanding. I also think that Farrak's trying to hint at something about the stone burner there. Um, it's to do with Scytale's response to it. Um, Farrak says the Naraj defenders used a stone burner. My son was too close. Cursed atomics. Even the stone burner should be outlawed. And Scytale says it skirts the intent of the law. So it basically sounds like an atomic weapon that's not quite, if you like. And he thought a stone burner on Naraj. We weren't told of that. Why does this old man speak of stone burners here? That's a good question. Why does he speak of stone burners here? We'll find out. It's a big part of this, but there is one here. And I think that's an aspect of the conspiracy, that the fact that Scytale doesn't know about it is important. And again, it's been 13 years since I've read this book, so I'm going at it. I don't know, some of you guys might move a bit forward. I'm going at it one chapter at a time and trying not to jump too far ahead, just as if it was fresh to me, just to see what we can find out, But yes, indeed. And of course, we've got this mention of Othim and Bijaz. And Bijaz is going to be quite an interesting character. He's got several kind of analogues in literature. Yeah, and we're going to get this bizarre. Yeah, do you know what? I was just thinking there's so much, and some of this is coming back to me. I was thinking about the different Janus aspects that we have within the book, and that we had both Paul and Irulan as a Janus, and Paul and Chani as one in the previous chapter. I suppose just how things are moving. Where are we? Our next chapter then is going to be the council. I suppose the opposite of the conspiracy, or what the conspiracy is aimed at. And we're going to meet another. We'll not meet Othim, will we? No, it's Korba we're going to meet in the next chapter. Korba's our nut, isn't he? A religious nut. I think if you were going to cast Korba, you should pick a Northern Irish actor, because they can do that religious mania in the right voice. Pick some of the good Belfast accent or something. But yes, so on we go, I suppose. Folks, it's Christmas time, isn't it? It's 22nd today. Midwinter is gone, and the days will start getting longer, which is good. It's really, really just nasty outside here. But I hope you're all keeping well. I'm going to head off now and call it a night. So unless anybody's got any wee questions or anything, comments, let me see. I'll have a wee quick look at the calendar. We've got all that Christmas stuff again. So yeah, I'll aim to be back on the same time next week, hopefully, if I get all the work done. I'm a wee bit light with my workload for students, so that's a possibility. And I was thinking I might pop on Christmas Day, have a little bit of a sci-fi chat in general, or sometime pop on a couple of times to do it. What do we call it? A sci-fi Friday or sci-fi Saturday or something like that over the holiday period. So if you are not up to much over the holidays, you can pop on and say hello, and we'll try and cover a few things outside of Dune, actually, because I'm looking forward to it. And I sort of been reading some science fiction and looking at some things. I was also having very quickly, I suppose, looking at just what some of our other authors have sort of have a wee say about Dune Messiah, just in terms of housekeeping. At some point, I got sent the alternative prologue, so I'd like to kind of try and cover it and try and sort of insert it at some point. There's something interesting I found, just different. I suppose we've got the prologue in the books that I have. We had an alternative prologue as presented by Brian Herbert in one of the, Road to Dune, I think, books. But then, of course, we discovered that there's another one. And we'll have to have a wee read through it, actually, just to add it into what we're doing with the book and be thorough, So there we go, folks. Sorry, I'm a wee bit tired tonight, actually. I've been trying to sort my sleep out. over the last week or so. My hand's been killing me, so I'm not actually at my utter sharpest tonight. I think you might have noticed. But it's all fun, I suppose. But yeah, so I'm getting a bit sleepy. And it's this all not drinking coffee and stuff as well, I suppose. But I've been having a few early starts. But there we go. So listen, folks, take it easy. I'll say good night, and it's Thursday, and a good chance I might see you at some point very soon before Christmas. And if not, we'll see you for the book club hopefully next week when we'll get the wee poster up. So in the meantime, I'll say good night. Look after yourselves no matter where you are. Take care. Have a happy Christmas if that's your thing, and happy holidays, etc. And look after yourselves. Be cool. Be safe. Be happy. Happy holidays to you and yours, Dark Rest. And we'll see you soon. Thank you very much, Carlos. I'll just say good night. Happy Christmas, everyone. Take it easy, and hopefully we will see you maybe either on Christmas Day or maybe before then. All the very best. Good night now. Take care. Bye bye.